Ram Ram. Welcome to the Wise Stories. I'm Yuvragi and I am here with yet another beautiful, funny story from my husband's childhood. Yes, the story is called Mr. Know It All and my girls love it too. Let's start our story. Once there was a daughter of a village that was married to a gentleman. Well, in the olden times, the camaraderie, the love within the community was so strong that my daughter was my daughter, my neighbor's daughter was also my daughter. So, by that relation, this gentleman became the son in law and loved by all of the entire village. So, one day he was walking to his in law's house, and on the way, he met not one but two donkeys. Here we have one and two. Yeah, there we go. So he met these two donkeys, and that particular day he was feeling mischievous. So what did he do? He threw these donkeys with their legs tied into a ditch and walked past. And while he reached the in-laws' house, he overheard a conversation between his mother-in-law and his father-in-law. The mother-in-law had made some chapatis for lunch and she served her father-in-law and said, "Two for you and one for me." And they were sitting down to eat just when he entered the house by making the sound and he entered. "Oh, Jaisa is here, Jaisa is here." The mother-in-law is super thrilled to have the Jamai in the house. The son-in-law, the father-in-law is welcoming him with open arms and they beckon him to come and join them for lunch. Well, that's when he says, "What are you talking about? There is no lunch. The two chapatis are for father-in-law and one chapati is for you, mother-in-law. Where is the extra food?" They were shocked and appalled. How come the son-in-law knows about their condition and situation? He must be Mr. Know-It-All. And the word spread. One washerman came running with his big problem. His donkeys had gone missing. So he said, "Oh, Jamaisa, you are Mr. Know-It-All. My two donkeys are missing since past 2 days. Can you help?" Sniggering, Mr. Know-It-All, our son-in-law, said, "Well, just go to the nearby forest, go 100 meters north, 200 meters south, and 100 meters east, and there you'll find a big ditch with your donkeys inside it." And lo behold, the donkeys were there. So he came running and he was quite a blabbermouth. He was blabbering the praise of Mr. Know-It-All, our son-in-law, to every possible client of his, and the word spread across nearby villages and reached the king's ears. Well, in those days, there were these bunch of thieves that were creating a lot of menace around a few villages and town. So the king suggested, "Why don't you ask Mr. Know-It-All, the son-in-law, to catch those thieves who are troubling my people so much?" So he was given the task to catch the thieves. Of course, he was wiping sweat off his forehead because he was no police to catch thief. He was just merely lucky. So what did he tell his wife? He called his wife and said, "Listen, my dear, tomorrow when everybody is still fast asleep, early in the morning around 4 a.m. we will leave. Just pack some churma laddus for the way." Now, for all the people who don't know what is churma, it is a crumble made of chapati or paratha or bati, and we add lots and lots of ghee and gur or sugar to it. It's an amazing dessert, very quick to make, and a go-to sweet and dessert in most households when you have no other sweet shops nearby. Well, that's in the olden times. So the wife was commissioned to make some churma laddus to carry on the way when they leave early in the morning. He was in no mood to catch any thieves, neither did he know how to catch any. So at night, when there was no electricity, I'm lucky that I'm sitting under so much light, the wife started to, what did she start to do? With a mortar and pestle, start to beat and crumble the bati. While she was crumbling the bati, a snake fell from the roof and landed in the mortar and pestle. Well, it was so dark she could hardly see, and along with the bati crumble, she crushed and crumbled the snake too. And she is observing that how come today my churma is so gooey and sticky. She couldn't understand why this had happened. Of course you can. So what did she decide? Well, all of her households are working on one concept called jugaad. So she thought, let me just put it out on the roof. It will dry up in some time and I can pack it for our journey. So she put the churma out to dry on the roof, on their terrace, and went to sleep. At night, the thieves arrived. Well, as luck would have it, the thieves arrived on her and Mr. Know-it-all's roof. And they said, wow, even before we steal, there's here a welcome party, there's churma on the terrace. So before we start stealing anything, let's have a bite of this yummy looking churma. So the moment the thieves started to eat that churma, one after the other, like flies, they started to feel dizzy and they fell unconscious. A few of them died, most of them fell unconscious. And next day, early in the morning, when the wife came to collect the churma from the rooftop, she saw these men, half unconscious, some dead, on the roof. And she figured they must be the thief. And the word spread. And the king marveled and congratulated Mr. Know-it-all and said, well, here is the man who is worthy to become my royal advisor. So he was invited to the royal court and was made the royal advisor of the king. Well, the king was so thrilled with his service and with his intelligence that he made him his royal advisor. So Mr. Know-it-all and the king met and he was commissioned to be the royal advisor. Well, he was enjoying all the attention he was getting. Who wouldn't? And he was enjoying the royal treatment he was getting at the palace. Lovely food, fancy accommodation to stay. What more would one want? But it wouldn't last very long. You know why? Oh, life is such, things change. After a few days of being at the palace, the queen lost her necklace. Well, we don't know who took it, but imagine, in broad daylight, in the presence of an army, of the soldiers, of the servants and the maids and the maidens, if the queen's expensive necklace goes missing, doesn't say much about the king's security and arrangement for safety. Well, queen was very agitated. So the king called upon his royal advisor, Mr. Know-it-all, and said, well, I command you to find out who stole the queen's necklace. So he folded his hands and said, oh, your highness, could you grant me a day's time to investigate the matter? I promise you I'll find you a solution soon. And he was granted. Well, that night Mr. Know-it-all got no sleep. He kept counting the tiles in the roof, kept counting the stars outside in the night sky, and he just wouldn't get any sleep. And he started to sing. Well, like in English language, there are so many slangs. There are slangs in Rajasthani too. So he sang, Nindar li aave to aaja, Raja mare go agle din. Nindar li aave to aaja, Raja mare go agle din. Which literally means, Nindarli is the slang word for sleep. So he is beckoning the sleep to come. Otherwise, he's saying, sleep, if you want to come, just come tonight. But after tonight, tomorrow onwards, the king is going to beat me black and blue. And why? We'll find out. Because he will fail to find out who stole the queen's necklace. While he was busy singing, the queen's maiden came to find out how much did Mr. Know-it-all actually know, because he was assigned the task to find the thief who had taken the queen's necklace. Well, this lady, luckily for Mr. Know-it-all, was called Nindadli. Yes. So Nindadli, the maiden, came to check on Mr. Know-it-all to find out how much did he know. And what did she find out? Well, Mr. Know-it-all was singing her name and said, Nindarli aave to aaja, Raja mare go agle din. Which means, Nindarli, if you want to come and surrender, come now. Otherwise, tomorrow the king is going to beat you. Well, Same song but two different meanings because of the listener's confusion. She actually thought Nindarli is not sleep but her own name that Mr. Know-it-all knows, and he was lucky yet again. So while he sang, she fell in his feet and said, please forgive me, do not tell anybody that I stole the queen's necklace. I promise you I'll tell you where it is, but it won't happen again. Please, please, please save me. He was, in a shock. He couldn't believe that he got lucky at catching the thief who had stolen the queen's necklace. Well, he was lucky, and that's why Mr. Know-it-all. So next day morning, Mr. Know-it-all took his own sweet time to get ready, did the puja, had a long bath, had a long breakfast, while everybody in the royal court was getting impatient and everybody was waiting for Mr. Know-it-all to come and reveal who the thief was. So he appeared in the royal court after waiting for a long time, and everybody asked him, do you know who the thief is? So he folded his hands and said, Your Majesty, I promise you such a theft will never happen again. And may I also suggest that the queen's necklace is hidden under the cow fodder in the cow shed. Please send your soldiers to retrieve it. So all the soldiers went running to the cow shed, dug up the cow fodder and looked around, and there, lo behold, they found the necklace. Of course, Nindarli had told him where she had hidden the necklace. And the king was so impressed with Mr. Know-it-all. But, sometimes with other people's success, there are so many more who feel very, very jealous. So there were these people in the royal court who felt very jealous of the ascent of Mr. Know-it-all in the royal court. He was climbing up the royal ladder and getting closer and closer to the king and becoming his confidant. So some people who were jealous suggested, oh, Your Majesty, that's amazing. Jaisa, Mr. Know-it-all knows everything. How about he helps us in our contest to find the man-eating tiger? What? A man-eating tiger? Yes, in those days, there was this one man-eating tiger that was causing a lot of chaos and lot of harm to so many people in that kingdom. So the king was asked to commission Mr. Know-it-all to catch the man-eating tiger. Man-eating tiger, he had no choice. And he was sent along with the army, and he was waiting, doomed to fall upon his head. He knew, how can he catch a man-eating tiger? Forget any tiger. But that night also the sleep evaded Mr. Know-it-all, and he was awake and tossing and turning in his bed when he suddenly heard the bleating of the goat that was set up as a bait for the man-eating tiger. And he thought maybe the goat had gotten off the hook of the leash. So he went out to the shed and caught hold of the goat's ear and took her to the place where the leash was and tied up and left. Next day morning, there were drums beating outside his room, people praising and singing songs in his praise, and he couldn't believe his ears what he was listening. He said, really? People are praising me? What really happened? Well, the soldier beckoned him to come to the shed, and what did he see? Instead of the goat, there was the man-eating tiger tied to a leash. And he scratched his head and he thought to himself, was it the man-eating tiger that I pulled by the ear and tied up to the leash? No wonder. And he thanked his stars and he thanked his good luck that the man-eating tiger must be so full by eating that bait goat that he didn't feel like eating me. And he got yet again lucky. And Mr. Know-it-all became so hot favorite of the king. But he was getting unlucky soon. Why? Because the neighboring kingdom decided to attack this kingdom. Well, the king called his most confident, courageous, brave Mr. Know-it-all to deal with the attack of the neighboring kingdom on their kingdom. So Mr. Know-it-all does not even know the W of war, did not even know the W of weapon, and there were so many W's in his head. What, where, when? moo, and he was scared. He didn't want to fight an army. He didn't know anything about fighting. So he thought to himself, okay, I will choose a horse that is lame or can't run, and I would be left behind far, far away to escape. So he went to the horse shed and he saw all kinds of horses. And what did he point at? There was this one horse with just 3 legs, and he thought, 3 legs? This horse cannot run fast at all. So he pointed at that horse and everybody clapped at his choice. Why? I'll tell you in a moment. Well, you know, most horses or 4-legged creatures tend to lift one leg and give it a rest. So please observe next time, if you have seen a cow, if you've seen a horse, they tend to pick up one leg and give it a rest. So that particular horse was the fastest in the kingdom, belonged to His Royal Highness the King, and Mr. Know-it-all had chosen in his ignorance the fastest horse in the kingdom. So everybody cheered for his choice, and he scratched his head and held his forehead saying, oh my God, what have I done? Well, he did not even know hour of riding. So he was put on the horse, his legs were tied to the stirrups, and the horse just sped, just ran off, took off. And he didn't know the army was left far, far behind, and he thought to himself, I'm going to die. What is going to happen to me? Now imagine a man sitting on a really fast horse and he wants to get off the horse while his legs are tied to the stirrups. So he tried to catch hold of any resistance on the way. There were trees and their branches. So he tried to catch hold of those branches and hope that the branch will hold him back and he would be able to get off the horse. Well, nothing of that happened. And in his sprint and run with that horse, he kept breaking branches on his way. Well, the army of the other kingdom that was attacking them, the first 3 flanks saw this man riding a big magnificent horse so fast and breaking trees and branches while he came towards them, charging. Well, that's how it appeared to the first 3 flanks of the soldiers of the neighboring kingdom that was attacking them, and they thought, oh my God, we do not want to mess with this kind of a warrior. If the warrior looks like this, what would the rest of the team and the army look like? And the first 3 flanks fled and the rest of the army retreated just by looking at Mr. Know-it-all riding that horse so fast and breaking trees and branches on his way. Well, they didn't know he was trying to retrieve himself and escape, but his luck favored him yet again, and yet again the kingdom was escaped the fate of being attacked by the neighboring kingdom. And the king was thrilled beyond compare, and the king called upon Mr. Know-it-all and patted him on his back, saying, it's because of you that we won a battle even before fighting it. Well done, Jaise. Well, Mr. Know-it-all had had enough, so he folded his hand and he said, Your Majesty, I am grateful for all the service and the attention and the accolades that you've granted me, but I wish to go back home. I really miss my home, my village. Please grant me the permission to go. Well, the king could not hold him back against his wish, but he felicitated Mr. Know-it-all with gold, with lands, and with lots and lots of respect. And he was bid farewell and he left for his village, wiping all the sweat off his forehead, because he had been lucky by far, but you never know when his luck might flip. So he did not want to take any more chances with his life, so he just left, but left on a good note. So think about if you know any other friends or people or relatives in your life who you think are so lucky, and what do you think really works for them? How and why do you think they are so lucky? Until we meet again, stay tuned to the Wise Stories. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Ram Ram.